Coming up, the Melbourne surgeon
My focus is on restoring jaw function.
whose medical invention to help his patients
Before I even got back to my room, the right side had dislocated.
has them wishing
My life ended that day.
they'd never met him.
You had broken screws in your head. That broke me.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
Australia has some of the most skillful surgeons in the world and some of the most inventive. Melbourne doctor George Dimitroulis wants the country to believe he's one of them. He's an oral and maxillofacial surgeon who specialises in fixing people's damaged jaws. To do so, he's developed a 3D printed prosthetic joint. It sounds impressive, but far from making his patients' lives better, many believe they end up worse off, and that the doctor's operation has caused them immeasurable suffering. Nine's Christina Hearn has this special medical investigation.
Tucked away in the West Australian bush, you couldn't find a more peaceful place to live.
Just surrounded by nature, all the trees, and it's really come to be my sanctuary.
But as beautiful as this is, it's not where Bree wants to be.
My life needs to be so quiet.
She says she had to move here from Melbourne after surgery on her jaw by Dr. George Dimitroulis went horribly wrong. City living is now out of the question because she can't tolerate loud sounds.
I actually do feel that my life ended that day of the surgery. It's perpetual suffering. I can't actually escape it.
Bree is one of 11 patients we've spoken to who trusted Dr. George Dimitroulis to fix problems with their jaws. Here he is, promoting his work for the Epworth Freemasons Hospital in Melbourne.
So I'm basically like an orthopaedic surgeon of the jaws. My focus is on restoring jaw function, trying to reduce pain.
But instead of helping them, these women say the high-flying surgeon has caused horrific damage.
Doctor, do you have anything to say to these patients? They certainly have a lot that they want to say to you about it.
Who gets to be so close to the action?
Yeah.
Back in 2018, Bree was making the most of life in Melbourne.
I was working at the Grand Prix at the time, and
I really loved it. It was a bucket list job for me.
But she'd been suffering sporadic pain in her jaw, so was referred to Dr. George Dimitroulis, an oral and maxillofacial surgeon in Melbourne.
he said that I had category 5 degenerative joint disease. He said surgery was my only option and that there was no other alternative.
The procedure Dr. Dimitroulis was recommending is called temporomandibular joint, or TMJ, replacement surgery. The TMJ connects the jaw to the skull on each side of the head. If it's damaged, it can cause pain and stiffness, making it hard to eat and drink. Much like a knee replacement, a surgeon can take a bad joint out and implant a prosthetic.
What did Dr. Dimitroulis say would happen if you didn't have this urgent surgery?
He said to me if I waited too long, he wouldn't be able to do anything more for me. It would be too late. I would lose function.
TMJ replacement surgery is a relatively common procedure, performed all over the world, mainly using a tried and tested device that's been around for decades. But here in Melbourne, Dr. Dimitroulis thought he could do better. So he created his own implant through his company, Maxonic. It's a 3D printed device, supposedly custom-made for a perfect fit. It was a lucrative idea for the doctor. It meant he could profit twice from the operation, charging both for the surgery and the implants. Did he say, I have to declare I have a financial interest in this?
No, not at all. There was never a mention of that.
But there clearly should have been. Failing to disclose a potential conflict of interest is against the guidelines set out by the Medical Board of Australia. It's something Dr. Gary Ballou, who's a world-leading expert in TMJ surgery, is well aware of. Why is it important to declare to a patient that you have a financial stake in the device?
It tends to reduce a certain amount of bias that you might otherwise have, and it enables the patient, I think, probably to make a more informed decision.
Bree says Dr. Dimitroulis also failed to tell her the implant had only been approved for use by the Therapeutic Goods Administration, or the TGA, for 2.5 years.
I asked him about the risks. I asked him about if anyone had been unhappy, if anyone had made complaints. He said no to all of those.
He told me they were a fantastic company and that they have a 0 failure rate to date.
If Dr. Dimitroulis' spruiking of his device sounds too good to be true, Amy Croxford says that's exactly what it turned out to be. After some more minor procedures to try and fix ongoing troubles with her jaw, he recommended TMJ replacement surgery. Like Bree, Amy says the surgeon didn't disclose his financial stake in the implant.
If I had known that he had any part in the joint, I wouldn't have gone ahead with it.
And why is that?
Because it was such a new company. I don't want to be somebody's guinea pig.
But none the wiser, Amy went ahead. She had the operation on the left-hand side of her face in 2017 and the right side a few months later. Instead of her pain improving though, Amy says it got worse.
I was living on liquids, couldn't chew, couldn't open my mouth to chew, couldn't clean my teeth, couldn't do anything. I was pretty much bedridden. Everything tasted like metal and it just felt like I was being poisoned from the inside out.
And that wasn't the only problem. Amy also felt like the implant that was supposed to be custom made didn't fit. But she says Dr. Dimitroulis didn't seem to care.
He told me it was all in my head, that there was nothing wrong with it, but I showed him the x-ray with the loose screws and he said, oh, there might be a couple of loose screws, but that's not a big deal. I can put new screws in it.
But the screws were a big deal. And shockingly, Amy wasn't the only patient who had problems with them. Chloe Scott did too. She had TMJ replacement surgery on the right side of her face in 2017 and did see some brief improvement. But after she had the left side done the next year, she knew something was wrong. How did you find out that you had broken screws in your head?
Persistence of complaint. Something's not right. It hurts all the time. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't concentrate. It just hurts so much. And my constant nagging led to him going, fine, we'll do another scan. And, well, maybe the screws aren't right.
Chloe needed another surgery to replace the screws on the right side of her face. She thought it would finally make her feel better. But when she showed her husband Shane, a mechanic, a post-operative scan, he made a gobsmacking discovery. The screws on the left side didn't look right either.
And I didn't say anything to George at first, and I sat there. And he went, oh no, the screws look great on the right. And I said, but what about these ones? And I pointed to the ones on the left, and he went, oh, they're broken. That broke me. It broke him. I was sitting in his office crying, and he's crying as well, going, I don't understand what went wrong. And my first question was, how did you miss a second lot of broken screws when you've just replaced the ones on the right? Why didn't you check them?
And it took your husband, who's a mechanic, to have a look at those scans because he knows screws.
He's a mechanic. So how has this surgeon, who's supposed to be the top of his field, missed something that's so critical?
Dr. Gary Ballou has never used the implant invented by Dr. Dimitroulis because there's another one available with a much better track record. With that device, which he's used more than 1,000 times, he says failing screws are virtually unheard of. What's the number of patients you've seen with a screw loose or a screw broken?
That would be 0. For the average patient who hasn't had a prior joint replacement, who doesn't have osteomyelitis or some other pathology of the bone, I've never seen a screw failure.
So I just try and cover these. I'll generally put...
Feeling she could no longer trust Dr. Dimitroulis, Chloe found another surgeon to remove the implants in 2021. 4 years on, though, she still bears the scars.
I can feel when I start getting over towards the edges, so closer to any of those incision lines, I get very odd sensations through my cheeks. Almost feels like there's cold water at times running down my face. Obviously, I know that there's not, but that's almost what it feels like. A little bit of pins and needly type feeling too.
Chloe says the surgery that was supposed to make it easier to eat and drink has left her struggling.
I can't have tacky or chewy or sticky things. It affects my hearing.
Can you bite into an apple?
No. No, I can't bite into an apple. I can't eat chicken off the bone.
What can patients expect after they undergo surgery? Can they bite into an apple?
That is the goal.
Can they eat steak at a restaurant?
The goal is to be able to have a steak, but for them it's probably going to be a filet mignon. It's probably not going to be a T-bone steak.
But they can still have steak.
They can still have steak. The vast majority of patients do exceedingly well with reduction in pain, improved function, and improved quality of life.
In fact, Dr. Ballou says the complication rate for the implant he uses is exceedingly low, below 1.5%. But the numbers aren't so good for the device created by Dr. Dimitroulis. This article he co-authored in 2021 admitted 13.9% of patients had problems with the implant over a 5-year period. If you're up around the 15% mark, would that be concerning?
It would be very concerning.
After the break, we confront Dr. George Dimitroulis, and you won't believe where we found him.
Why do we have 11 patients and counting talking about life-changing injuries that they've sustained as a result of this implant?
Not only has Dr. George Dimitroulis been a dentist and surgeon for 30 years, he's also an inventor.
My passion really is research and development. I have so many ideas in my head. I just can't keep up with it, or my engineers can't keep up with. Every time I walk through the door, say, guys, I've got another idea.
In 2012, the doctor had an idea he thought would improve an operation called TMJ replacement surgery. It's like a knee replacement for the joint connecting the jaw to the skull. Most surgeons use an implant with a proven track record, but not Dr. Dimitroulis. As he explained at this event in Melbourne 3 years ago, he designed his own. A 3D printed device, custom made, supposedly to fit perfectly in a patient's face.
As the founder and clinical director of the company, I feel very proud.
In 2018, Dr. Dimitroulis promised Jodie Goodlett the implant would help her. She was suffering severe pain and arthritis in her jaw. But immediately after the operation, she knew something was wrong.
Before I even got back to my room, the right side had dislocated. Straight after the surgery, it had dislocated.
It had already come out.
Yeah.
Jodie needed 2 more surgeries to try to get the implants to sit correctly.
I don't see how it could happen if it was a 3D print designed for me. So I lost 9 kilos in a week. So I was quite sick and very weak after that.
But then she found out what the problem really was. Some of the screws holding her implants in place were loose. In the end, it wasn't Dr. Dimitroulis, but another surgeon who replaced the screws. But 7 years on, she's still suffering.
Any time I go to eat or drink anything, I get severe nerve pain, both sides, and that's been non-stop since the surgery. It's just a case of keep going.
Jodie didn't want anyone else to end up like her. So in 2018, she made an official complaint. 3 years later, the regulator, APRA, made damning findings. Dr. Dimitroulis' conduct amounted to unsatisfactory professional performance and posed an ongoing risk to the health and safety of the public. He was ordered to undergo education and have an audit of his practice, but remarkably, allowed to keep operating.
So I just want him stopped.
You sort of get used to it because a lot of things have been taken away now.
Around the same time Jodie was experiencing problems with the implant, so was another one of Dr. Dimitroulis' patients, Amy Croxford.
I used to swim a lot, but I can't swim anymore since all the jaw surgeries. My ears just fill with water and I end up with infection. Get on a flight.
In 2020, the surgeon finally agreed to remove the devices. She couldn't believe what he said after the operation.
He handed me a referral to go and see a different surgeon and said, "Prove I ever put a joint in your fucking head."
Why do you think he said that to you?
Because I think he realised that he was in a lot of trouble.
The surgeon was right to suspect this was going to become an even bigger problem for him. Amy is now suing him for medical negligence, and she's not the only one. Her lawyer, Sherry Leiby from Slater and Gordon, is representing 13 of his former patients.
I have been told by a doctor that has been working to replace some of these devices for patients that what I have seen is probably only the tip of the iceberg.
Sherry is also fighting for Bree. She says she woke up from her surgery in excruciating pain and unable to tolerate even the slightest noise.
I felt the prostheses were too big for my face. He told me initially, he said, "That's the swelling, it'll go down." Then he told me later that I needed to fatten up and then I won't notice it.
And how did that sit with you?
I thought that was ludicrous, and that's not a solution. That's not addressing the problem.
It doesn't make sense to Dr. Gary Ballou either. He's done this kind of operation more than 1,000 times using a different implant. If an implant didn't fit in a patient's jaw, would them fattening up help the situation?
Yeah, I don't understand the sort of logic behind that. Fattening up the patient, I'm not quite sure how that correlates with an ill-fitting joint.
Did you talk to Dr. Dimitroulis at any stage and say, "I'm actually in a worse position now than I was before the surgery"?
I did. I said to him that I believed he'd misrepresented the procedure, the outcomes. He'd misinformed me. He'd withheld information from me.
And how did he reply?
He said, "You're right. Perhaps I could have spent more time with you in the consulting phase before the surgery. But you've just described a typical surgeon. We are arrogant. We do have big egos. Perhaps they should teach us to be psychologists."
Last November, as the lawsuits against him were mounting, Dr. Dimitroulis decided to stop practicing. Since then, Sherry Leiby says he's been trying to convince her to drop the cases.
So APRA, the dental board, requires that practitioners obtain insurance to cover them after they've retired as well. It's called runoff cover. And he did not get that. And he's written to me about that. And he has indicated that perhaps my client shouldn't pursue the claims because there's no insurance. I think that's something that NAPRA might want to look into.
So he's written to you and said there's no point pursuing me because I'm retired, I don't have insurance and I don't have money.
That's correct.
Although Dr. Dimitroulis has given up operating, he still delivers medical presentations. We tracked him down in Adelaide on Friday, arriving to give a speech for the peak body of oral and maxillofacial surgeons.
Why do we have 11 patients and counting talking about life-changing injuries they've sustained as a result of this implant?
We would have much preferred a proper interview with the surgeon, but our requests were ignored.
These patients that we've spoken to have got horrific injuries. If you've got a commercial stake in the device, don't you think that you should have mentioned that to the patients? What are you going to say at this conference? Are you going to be spruiking this device?
We also asked the regulator APRA to explain why more wasn't done to keep Dr. Dimitroulis in check. But they didn't want to talk about it, and neither did the TGA. Chloe Scott believes they have a lot to answer for.
I think they should be stepping in and reviewing everything, taking it back to square one, looking at where things went wrong.
The TGA has received 21 complaints about the device, and a hazard alert was issued in 2021. Maxonic, the company founded by Dr. Dimitroulis, started recommending different screws for use in the implants, which are still being sold.
It's made it simpler, easier, more predictable, more precise, and so we get a result that is so much better than it was 5 years ago.
Although the surgeon isn't practicing anymore, these former patients remain furious about the device. They fear they'll never get over their horrible ordeals.
Nobody should be able to do that to people. A hospital shouldn't allow the guy that creates the joints to put them in willy-nilly in all the patients. It's just not fair.
I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It's been one hell of a ride.
Dr. Dimitroulis didn't respond to questions 60 Minutes sent to him, but in defences he's filed for multiple lawsuits he's facing, he's denied allegations of wrongdoing and negligence. Hello, I'm Amelia Adams. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minute segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.